Welcome to the Armed and Ready podcast. I am your host, Jason Wood, the VA loan guy. We have a really exciting episode lined up for you, so come check it out. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Armed and Ready podcast. I'm your host, Jason Wood, the VA loan guy. Today we've got a fun guest with us. We've got Eric Brew, Army veteran, who's going to tell us all about his experience and even transition from one branch to another in his service. So, Eric, welcome to the show, man.
Appreciate it. I'm humbled to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your journey. You joined the military. What was your motivating factor to get into the military?
Oh, wow, Jason, you are asking about a checkered past, my friend. Okay, so I grew up in Michigan. I'm from the north, but I grew up in a great home, and I went to college, failed in college, failed miserably, and decided that I needed to find something different to straighten out my life. That's the short version, right? Found a Marine Corps recruiter, joined the Marine Corps at 19 years old, just about 20, and left from Marine Corps boot camp. Served for 4 years in the Marine Corps. I was stationed out by you out at Camp Pendleton, and then I got out. It was an easy tour. It was in the from '96 to 2000, so there wasn't a lot going on, and so I transitioned out. And that's the quick version, right? That's the down and dirty. But I transitioned out because the grass is always green on the other side. Stepping away from service, it wasn't exactly what I expected. So stepping away from service was I thought a smart decision. And I transitioned into the civilian life with no assistance. I didn't reach out to a single VSO. I didn't know anything about veteran service organizations or assistance that was out there. And I failed. I tried to make it in the civilian world. I worked construction. I probably worked 3 or 4 different jobs, different industries, just trying to figure out a way to make money. I had a young family, a few kids and a wife, and just wasn't doing well. I didn't transition well. It didn't take me long to realize that I enjoyed the camaraderie. I enjoyed the rigidness of the military.
Yeah.
And there isn't a lot of that out in the civilian world.
Right.
And so I was scrambling, trying to make things work. And then 9/11 happened. 9/11 happened, and I looked at my then wife, and I explained to her that it was time to go talk to a recruiter. I went and talked to a Marine Corps recruiter, and they told me to pound sand. They told me there was no need for me to come in there because I'd already gotten out. And so I turned around and walked down the hallway to an Army recruiter, and they were more than happy to escort me down the hall to get back to MEPS and get back to service. So just after 9/11, I enlisted and took off for the Army. Spent the next almost 21 years in the Army.
Wow.
I have been blessed. I've had an incredible career. I've been all over the world. I've done 4 combat tours, 2 to Iraq, 2 to Afghanistan. But I think the best part of my journey is that I got to be an infantryman. I got to be the tip of the spear, the guys that get out there and put boots to ground and boots to butt, as it were. But I had a great career. I've had a lot of fun, man. I've had a lot of fun. But just last year, a couple of years ago, I decided it was time to hang it up, and so I retired. And last year, June was my official retirement date. So it's been a good time.
Nice. What'd you get out as?
I was a first sergeant. I was an E8.
Oh, right on. That's a big role,
Yeah.
man. First sergeant's important. So tell me a little bit about your tours in Afghanistan and Iraq. Like, when did those take place? Like right after you got in, did they just send you out, or how did that work?
No, I actually, my first duty station was at Fort Hood, and I was assigned to a unit that was just then coming back from Iraq. And so I didn't get to take off as soon as I wanted. As soon as I, because that's what every young guy, that joins the infantry wants, right?
Yeah.
Let me go do my job. So I did not get to leave right away. And then there was an opportunity for me to PCS and make a permanent change of station from Fort Hood over to Fort Lewis, Washington, which is now called JBLM, Joint Base Lewis McChord. But I went over there. I got to JBLM in 2005, and joined a unit that was just standing up and gearing up to go to Iraq. And so I got to be with the 2nd Infantry Division, 4th Stryker Brigade, which was a lot of fun for me. I spent 9 years there, which was it's kind of unheard of.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Didn't have to move, but I did get sucked into the deployment cycle. So I did 3 straight deployments with that unit. Did the first 2 to Iraq. The first one was 15 months. So that's a rough go. I didn't see any mid-tour leave or any kind of downtime until about month 11. When my then first sergeant sat me down and told me it was time for me to go home and take a little break, because it's been 11 months straight combat. Came back from that tour, and about 10 months later, the Army shipped us back off. We got redeployed for another 12 months to Iraq. Both of those tours were a lot of fun. I was in a reconnaissance platoon, so I do a lot of cool stuff, and work with some cool guys doing some cool things. But did that for those two deployments. Came back, and we had a little bit of a lull. It was about 12, 14 months before we deployed again. But that time I got to go over as a platoon sergeant. So I spent my first two deployments as a recon team leader. So I ran a recon team.
Okay.
And then my third deployment, I'd been promoted to sergeant first class. So I was a platoon sergeant and took an infantry platoon to combat and had a lot of fun with that. At that point, we were down in southern Afghanistan, down in the Panjwai district, and had a good time there. Had a good time.
Nice. What's it like? I mean, you had some long tours. That 15-monther,
Mm-hmm.
pretty tough with a young family. What was that like for you in the family environment?
It's sad. I said my then wife, but I think that's a contributing factor, right?
Right.
It's everything has a toll and everything has a price. It was tough. It was, then there wasn't a lot of communication. Then it was, we didn't have cell phones overseas. We didn't have readily available internet. We were in, the internet was in trailers. The phone centers were in trailers. And so there was a lot of, standing in line and waiting to call and hoping that somebody would answer because there's no way to coordinate that call. So that played a toll. It took a toll on the family. At that time I had two sons and a daughter. I mean, they all suffered. For me, I unfortunately found it necessary to create a switch. And so I learned how when I got on an airplane to head overseas, I flipped a switch and turned on a mental block and engaged in what I needed to engage in.
Yeah, I think that's what, most soldiers have to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to flip that switch and be mission focused or, it's your life in jeopardy if you can't, right?
Correct. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Man, that's tough. So your time in Afghanistan, it's not hot in the media anymore, but, we had that poor exit out of Afghanistan recently. What are your thoughts, or how did that impact you? Did you have, Afghanis that you were working with and stuff like that, you stayed in touch with, or, how did that whole exit impact you?
So I didn't have any Afghanis that I stayed in touch with over the years, and I never got reached out to anybody or by anybody. But watching the exit, it's tough, Jason, because there's, having been the guy with the boots on the ground, it's easy to armchair quarterback things. It's easy to sit back and tell people what you would have done if you were in charge. I looked at it from a tactical standpoint. So I looked at the leaders on the ground, who was making decisions at the moment. I've been in situations where there's not a time to call. You're not going to call the commander in chief and ask for an answer, right? You're not going to call the general and get an answer. You are a staff sergeant. You're an E6. You're an E7. You're a young lieutenant or a young captain, and you're making a decision on the fly. And there's no room to stop and ask your senior leaders. So I try very hard when I watch those things not to armchair quarterback, because I understand that those moments are tumultuous at best, right? They are they're hard. When you see people, when you spend time overseas, you spend time in Iraq or Afghanistan, what you learn is that evil doesn't have a color. Evil doesn't have a race. It doesn't have a religion, right? Evil is evil. And so when you see people hanging from the bottoms of planes, all they want to do is get away from a dangerous situation. These are human beings who want to escape, because living under a rule like that is it's their life every day. In that part of the world, warring tribes have been around for thousands of years. It's been unsafe for a very long time. And then they got a taste of what it looks like to have a little security around them, and that's hard to let go of.
It's crazy to think, we're so fortunate in this country that we've never had to experience, the warring tribes and, the continuous fighting, which in the Middle East, since biblical days, they've just always been fighting with each other. Yep. And that's,
I don't know. I think we do. I think we as a nation, we see that. I don't think to that extent. I don't think in that way.
Yeah.
But I think that's one thing I love about our brothers, like our community, our veteran community, right? I think we have a unique opportunity to teach the rest of our countrymen what it looks like to come together, what it looks like to band together, regardless of race, color, creed, religion, right?
Yeah.
And to be a community. And I think that's a super interesting and important role and responsibility of our veteran community. We're a unique blending ground. We're a microcosm of the people of the United States. We come from all walks of life, all areas, all backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, and we're blended together, and we figure out a way to make it work. And I think that when we talk about our veteran community and our folks that are in post-military situations and now in civilian employment and civilian business, we have a unique and important responsibility to teach that lesson through our example, right? Model that behavior.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think in today's day and age in our society, it's as important or more important than it ever has been to lead that way, because it has become so media frenzied with the finger pointing, and everybody's a bad guy for one thing or another. And fast forward 8 months later, and then it's switched, and it's just, really it's all about selling TV. It's what it boils down to. But it's sad to see. I mean, I see it just in, my local area and how it just divides people, and it's awful. And it's sad to watch that. But you're totally right. Like, evil doesn't have a color, it doesn't have a race, it doesn't have a religion. Evil is evil, right? And that's not what we all are, even though we might have varying thoughts of things, right? So yeah, I mean, that message needs to be pronounced with the veteran community, because in the military, that stuff, it doesn't filter in, right? And we're able to maintain that esprit de corps and that quorum that keeps that all outside, all humans. We're just all doing our thing and making it work together.
Absolutely.
So you retired this summer, right?
I did, June of 2020. Yep.
Nice. So have you made the civilian transition? Have you just been kind of enjoying retirement? What are you up to?
And I don't know if I would call it transition. It's funny because I coach transition now, but I never really had to transition. So what happened was as I got towards the end of my service and I started, looking at my retirement packet, we want to start fixing the things that are wrong with us, right? Because now we're thinking about the VA and we're thinking about all this other stuff. So I start fixing the things that's wrong with me. And I had a pretty serious knee surgery. And that left me with quite a bit of convalescent leave. And I found this organization called Still Serving Veterans. They're a local organization. They were right around the corner from where I lived. And so I was able to get in there and start talking and engaging with that team there in Phoenix City. And what Charles Livings, the director there, allowed me to do was to come in and really schlep water and coffee to the clients, to the veterans, transition service members, and volunteer some time. And so I volunteered some time because it's a veteran nonprofit. And I thought it was super cool. That turned into a great love for what they do and for what their mission is. And so I rolled that into an internship. So as soon as I came off of convalescent leave, I went right into an internship and spent 90 days as an intern, learning the ropes, learning the coaching pieces, learning transition, learning civilian employment, things like that. And that turned into me going on to terminal leave and accepting a job offer the same day. And so Still Serving Veterans brought me on as a counselor to come in there. And I was writing resumes and coaching folks as they transitioned out of the military, coaching veterans and such. And then that fast forwarded into a promotion to a program management position. So I took over as the transition program manager. And that's what I'm doing now. So I am the program manager for Still Serving Veterans who I work with veterans, transitioning service, mil spouses, to work with them through the employment piece. And that's really where we're focused, right, is on the employment, transition employment. But that has been now almost 2 years. As a matter of fact, today was my 2-year anniversary. I got a bunch of emails from my coworkers congratulating me on 2 years of Still Serving Veterans total. So that's a lot of fun. Yeah. But man, it is an interesting mission. It is a vital mission, and I'm super, super proud and humbled to be a part of the team.
It's so critical. What in your helping guys transition and do that resume, the word resume kind of sticks out to me in that transition, right? It's this thing, like, we're not taught how to write them in the military. We don't know what they look like. What are they supposed to be formatted? What do they need to say? I was in the military from here to here. What else do you want to know? Right? Like,
yep.
So, And not that that is the overcoming obstacle, but it seems to me like kind of a mental block, right? Especially if like writing and being on Microsoft Word is not your jam. What kind of things are you helping people with, or how do you advise people to kind of start that resume building piece?
That's really where my focus is. I work with veterans in Millsouth as well, but really we focus heavily on our transitioning folks. And you're right. I mean, the blank piece of paper with 4 or 24 years that you've got to figure out how to translate, that blank piece of paper is terrifying.
Yeah.
How do I take my career and put it, we hear folks say all the time, nobody cares that you were a Ranger, or nobody cares that you were airborne, or nobody cares that, you were a pilot. Nobody, it's not that the civilian business folks don't care. It's that we're trying to sell it in a language they don't understand.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
93% of America have never worn a uniform. And therefore, they don't understand the way. Nobody cares that you were a first sergeant. Well, if I told you what a first sergeant did in your language, and I talked about 327 employees with 93 different job specialties, and I was running the operations for that organization, that's very different than I was a first sergeant.
1,000%. Yeah.
Right. So it's a language issue. And I tell folks all the time, look, we'll help you with the resume. So transitioning folks will write a resume for them, right? Veterans will try and help, because most veterans, a little longer in the tooth have got a resume established. We'll help tweak it. We'll help target it, whatever. But when it comes to our transitioning folks, again, it's 7% of America is our veteran population. The onus is on us to transition and transform and to assimilate to civilian life, right? The onus is not on the average civilian employer to learn Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guard speak, Space Force, right? Totally. We're not going to learn that speak. That's not their job. And so I tell folks all the time, right? You're more than likely not facing an education issue. You're not facing an experience deficit. You're not facing an abilities or capabilities issue. You're facing a communication problem. How do I translate my career into civilianese so that the people who are looking for great talent know that that's what I'm bringing to the table?
Yeah.
Right? Understanding what soft skills are and how they apply, right? How I take 24, 25 years or 4 years in the military and look at the lessons learned and the soft skills I've obtained, and how do I sell that on a piece of paper? And then take that a step further, because the resume's job is to get you to the door. How do I sell that in an interview? It's one thing to be able to get it on paper, but I've got to be able to speak it as well. So the real issue is teaching people to be bilingual. I don't ever want somebody to obfuscate or hide from being a veteran. I want them to be proud of being a veteran. I want them to know that that's an important role that they've played in American history. But I want them to know how to navigate the waters in a world that isn't the military.
That's awesome that you give that simile, because the language piece of it, communication, that's it. Like learning a foreign language, plain and simple.
Yep.
I love it. So what kind of experiences do you lean on from your military career that, help kind of shape either who you are today or how you perform in your civilian world? Are any experiences like fun or, kind of things that you were taught that were good leadership lessons or anything like that resonate with you that you carry forward?
I've been blessed in my career with incredible leadership. I'll drop names. I don't even care. John Troxell is the former SEAC. He's the former senior enlisted advisor to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That man was my brigade sergeant major. I worked directly for John, and today John and I are great friends. He is an incredible influence and has been for 15 of my 24 years.
Wow.
I'll never forget the day I was promoted to E5. I was promoted to sergeant. And the one thing that John Wayne Troxell looked at me and said, Sergeant Major Troxell looked at me and said, don't ever forget where you came from. Now that you're a non-commissioned officer, don't ever forget where you came from. And so I draw on experiences and lessons I've been taught by the senior leaders I've been blessed to be around. But I go way back. I go way back to my old man, right? I go way back to lessons I've learned from him about work ethic, about where, I'll tell you my favorite story about my dad. This isn't a military story, but my dad was a lineman. My dad climbed power poles for 35 years.
Wow.
Worked as an electrician, as a power guy. And I used to go to work with him when I was a kid, right? And I was sitting in the truck one day and I was watching my dad. He's talking to a couple of young guys, and the young guy's bouncing his lips, just talking about how great he is. And my dad's, a senior lineman at this point, and the kid's bumping his lips. And my dad takes a sip of his coffee and he says, well, we got the talking part done. And just turned around and walked away. And I'll never forget, like, I think I was 10, 11 years old. Like, that stuck with me, right?
Yeah.
All kinds of would-haves, could-haves, and should-haves in life. If you didn't, you didn't. So if you're going to say you're going to do, then do. But I mean, aside from my dad, like I said, Troxel's, I mean, God bless. If you've ever met him, if you've ever talked to that guy, that man commands a room no matter where he goes. It's just absolutely incredible to watch him. But I mean, there's so many, I don't even know where to begin. There's so many lessons, right? 24, 25 years. I think I love coaching, and I think I learned to love coaching. I think it was probably when I was wearing that hat. I mean, when I was a drill sergeant, I think that's probably where I learned that I loved it. I knew I could do it, right? I was a master resiliency instructor. And so I knew I could coach and teach. But I think I learned to love it as a drill sergeant. That was a lot of fun. Dealing with those kids was a lot of fun. But that was a lot of stress too, right? Taking a kid from mama's couch and turning him into a battle-ready infantryman in 14 weeks wasn't easy.
That is a challenge, yeah.
Yeah, that is. But that's where teamwork comes in, right? That's where the team of other drill sergeants and the other cadre come in. It's never that. What I think what I love about the military is it's never a one-man show, right? It's never about me. It's about the team. It's about what we're doing as a team. And I think that's just a great lesson. But I draw on all kinds of experiences. I draw on stories from combat. I draw on things I've learned from I'd say I've learned more from my subordinates than I've learned from probably anybody. I've got great kids that have worked for me that I stay in contact with, and I truly feel shaped me. When I retired, in my speech, I made a statement, and it's a quote. It's not my own, but I said I've stood on the shoulders of giants, and that's my honest opinion. I have stood on the shoulders of giants, and I've been able to see the world because I surrounded myself with two types of people. I surrounded myself with people that disagreed with me, and I surrounded myself with people that were better than me. And I felt like that always sharpened me. That always made me try just a little bit harder, maybe work just a little bit more, maybe stay just a little bit later, because I knew that I had to match them. I wasn't always leading. I mean, I was in a leadership role,
right? But
I had to match myself. I had to match the people that were around me. I had to at least keep up. I had to match them. But no, I think that's a lot of fun, right? That's the fun part of leadership. Leadership's never about you.
Right.
It's never, ever about you. But coaching is the same way. Coaching is exactly the same way. It's never about you. If you're coaching for yourself, then you're in the wrong business.
100%. Yeah. It's about the students when you're coaching, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And your success is based on their success.
Yeah.
So if they're not driving the results, then,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important too, right? Like my whole career, people told me how to be successful. Go to this school, do this thing, you'll be successful. Lead this way, you'll be successful. And I got to tell you, I've pushed back on that for a lot of years. A blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while. And by default, that little sucker is successful.
Right.
So success can be accidental. I don't ever want, success is not something I strive for. I strive to be effective, right? And that's what we want to be with people we lead. We want to be with people we coach. I want to be effective. I want to have an effect, because that, I think, is a step above success. Success isn't hard to get. You can surround yourself with great people and be successful and not be very good yourself, right?
True.
So trying to be effective, I think, is taking success to the next level.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So tell me a little bit about being a drill sergeant, because the drill sergeant, right? That's kind of the famed position in the military from movies and all that kind of thing, and also the most feared position, especially by those who are new recruits or considering the military, right? Is that drill instructor. So tell us a little bit about what it's like being on the other side. So not being the student, but being the drill instructor, and what is that life like? Because, I look back, like when I was in basic training, and it's this, big, intimidating, the big brim hat yelling at you, making you run and do push-ups and all this stuff all the time. And then all of a sudden they disappear and there's a new one in your face, right? Because he was probably off work and got to go home. But, we're not thinking of that. We're just like, oh my gosh, it never ends, right? They just keep pounding us. But what's it like being on the other side of that?
Watching a human being go from a zero knowledge base to capable of passing tests, physical, mental, agility, like being able to pass these gate marks, right, that we've set in front of them that aren't easy to meet. Not everybody graduates. Not everybody does it right. So watching a human being, and any human being, be able to grow from the zero base to at least that baseline, right? It's basic training for a reason. And that was one thing, I spent 2 years as a drill sergeant, and then I got promoted to first sergeant, and I stayed for another 2 years as a first sergeant in a basic training environment. So I spent 4 years total in basic training. And that was one thing I tried to explain to all my junior drill sergeants and then my drill sergeants when I was a first sergeant is this is basic training. I know, you want to take them to this next level, and you want to get them on this glide slope that's, a very steep arc, but it's basic. But even getting to them to the basics, if you look at what the average private does, or young airman does, or young seaman does, like it's astronomical compared to their peers. Yeah. The level of responsibility that's placed on them, the level of accountability that's placed on them, the amount of knowledge they've got to retain and regurgitate and live by, it's astronomical as compared to most of their peers. And so watching someone go from that zero base up is just, it's just fun to watch. And you get to have a lot of fun doing it. I do feel like in 4 years, we were able to perfect a lot of comedy bits because it was the same audience repeated, right? It's wash, rinse, repeat.
Right.
It's the same events. And so the comedy stays, but it's just a different audience. Now we can make it a little bit better. For instance, I will tell you that it is interesting to watch a group of privates come back from a training event and see a trot line across their bay filled with their boots, and watch them figure out the conundrum. I think the fun part in that is when you sit down and explain to them, like towards the end of the cycle, every time I did something kind of crazy and weird like that, I would wait to the end of the cycle, and then I would bring in this, big, long, hour-long course or class that I would teach. And at the end of it, they would realize that's why I did that thing. Right. So it's the teamwork. It's teamwork, or it's figuring out a solution to a problem, outside the box thinking, whatever it is. This is what I was trying to get out of you. And then there's like, oh, we thought you were being a jerk. No, it wasn't just being a jerk. Right. Everything we do has a purpose.
Right.
I thoroughly enjoyed interacting with the kids. And I think it was fun too, because at that particular moment in my life, they were roughly the same age as my sons. And so they would say things, and I'd be like, oh, you think you're going to pull this one over? No, I just heard this one last night about homework, right? Like I know this gig. I'm not playing because kids are kids. But I had a lot of fun, man. I think I keep repeating that here. I keep having fun, and I think that's one thing as I'm thinking about your questions and what you're asking me. That's what I'm realizing. I had a ton of fun. There's a lot of hard times. A lot of hard times, but I had so much fun.
Well, I think that's a really cool statement to make, because I talk to people about this, which was coached to me just in my profession, but is finding the joy in what you do, right? Mm-hmm. Because what you do isn't necessarily going to bring you joy day in and day out, right? Like you mentioned, there's hard times. I mean, there's times where it just sucks and you can't stand it, right? But you have to be able to kind of step out of the situation a little bit and think of and find the joy in what it is you're doing, whether it's your job or your profession or just that day at work, right? That's just sucking a lot. And for some people, that's a real big challenge because they think the opposite, right? What I do should be providing me the joy. And that's just not how life goes. And
no,
life is a lot better when you can find the joy in what you're doing, right?
The intrinsic motivation, the ability to find intrinsic joy, intrinsic hope, that's important. Those are important skills to have. But you're right. Finding joy in what you do. Never let a loss be a loss. I had a bad day. It doesn't mean it's a loss, right? What's that old saying? In life, I never lose. I either win or I learn.
Yeah.
Right? I refuse to take a loss. I just refuse. And to me, it's a perspective issue. It's simply changing a perspective. When I coach clients now, and hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? That's always my first question, right? What do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know. I mean, I feel like a high school senior. I can do everything. And they're right. I mean, there's something, when Eric Brew got out of the Army, I wasn't going to go straight into being a surgeon, right?
Right.
So there's things that's not feasible with, but realistically, the field is vast. The opportunities are vast. And so I coach perspective, right? I can't see the forest through the trees. There are too many options. Cut down some trees. What don't you want to do? Let's answer the hard questions. What are your hard no's? What are your non-negotiables? What are your core values? What do you expect out of an industry or a company? Let's start narrowing the field instead of just looking at everything going, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's good advice, because not everybody has like a plan mapped out,
Correct.
You've been in the military either 4 years or 20 plus years and probably didn't put a ton of thought into what's coming next. If it's for some people, none, but, probably not a ton of thought. And then it's like, oh my gosh, there's a gazillion things available. And, that's overwhelming, right? There's a lot to it. So that's really, really good that you're helping them kind of narrow that down in the way that you do it, because that's super important. These guys and gals, a lot of times are just kind of lost, got all the skills in the world, but where do we take them?
I tell people that all the time, right? Like, I look at our service members, our transitioning folks, and it's kind of like, I always get this word picture. And I know if anybody I've already coached watches this, they're going to say, oh yeah, you said that to me, because I see it in a lot of folks, right? I see the people that are standing out in this field, and they've got all this lumber and hardware and all these tools behind them. And there's all this stuff, right? But they're holding a blueprint that's empty. They don't know if they're supposed to build a desk or a house, right? I've got the stuff. I just don't know what I'm supposed to build. And so building perspective, I'm a coach. I'm a mentor. I provide a perspective. I give great advice, but a really good synonym for advice is opinion.
Sure.
Right? I give my opinions a lot. But opinion can provide perspective. And so when we talk about transition, we talk about building a group, a team, a tribe of other mentors, a tribe of peer mentors and coaches and friends and family around you that are going to give you perspective as to what you're doing. Because the more people you talk to, that blueprint starts to come alive, right? Lengths start to show up, and widths and depths. And all of a sudden you start to see what that picture is. You've already got the tools, but building the perspective from conversations with multiple people, getting on websites like Betterati, right? And going through mentorship sessions, getting involved with other nonprofits and other organizations and other people, it drives all of that information, which really fills the blueprint. And it takes some time, but if it's done with care, right? And if it's done with the right guidance, it really can provide an interesting blueprint for your future.
That's great. Yeah, you're totally right. Where would you suggest people look to start getting some of this perspective? I mean, your organization, obviously, and what others have you seen out there that you could say, okay, look here, to help you kind of get this going? There
are 50,000 veteran nonprofits in the United States, right? Not all of them are employment or transition stuff, right? We've got a lot of stuff for our indigent veterans and homeless and all this other stuff. So
yeah,
that's a large number. But here is my advice. Google veteran organizations. Google veteran nonprofits. I am never going to be the one that tells you should only go to this one, or this one, or don't go to this one, or this one. I don't want to do that, because inside of every organization is value. Any organization who steps up and says, hey, I'm here to serve our veteran community, in my opinion, and I know that's I'm only looking at one community, right? But like I said, the veteran community is still a microcosm of the United States.
Yeah.
Every race, color, creed, religion, we are represented. And so I say go to all of them. It can get overwhelming. So control your own spigot, right? Control your own water flow, because it can get overwhelming. But go to as many as you can and talk to as many people, because inside of every organization is some value somewhere. Whether you're talking to Hire Heroes USA or you're talking to ACP, I love ACP. If you're talking to ACP, or you're talking to Still Serving Veterans, you're talking to Vets to Industry, there's all these organizations out there, and those are just ones I'm off the top of my head that care, that have a great mission and a heart for our veterans, right?
Yeah.
If you're not paying anything and all you're doing is investing your time, if you're not willing, I understand people who are like, well, I don't want to pay $500 for a resume. Look, you can pay $500 for a resume and never see the inside of an interview room.
True.
Right? You could also, conversely, you could take a piece of paper and some crayons and draw your resume and land the job of a lifetime because they loved your creativity, right? And the fact is everyone else is somewhere in the middle. but getting with all of these different organizations allows you to build unique tool sets. I call them my arrows, right? I want my clients to have as many arrows in their quiver as they can, because the job seeking process is a moving target, and it's multiple moving targets, and there are multiple distances. So one arrow is not going to work.
Right.
There's no such thing as one tool to rule them all. And so getting people involved with the mentorship process, Veterati is huge. I love Veterati. Veterati is a website. It's free. You create a little profile, and then it matches you with a whole bunch of mentors. It's incredible. Take the time. I understand that, like I said, and I understand not wanting to invest money, but if you're gonna transition, then let's invest time.
Yeah.
Let's invest time.
Well, you're gonna have plenty of that when you get out. So sitting on the couch and playing video games isn't gonna get you very far.
You're right, and I'm not gonna lie. I think I work more hours now that I'm retired than I did when I was in. I'm getting ready to take my first vacation. Friday, I go on PTO, and I'm gonna have a 2-week vacation for the first time in I think 3 years.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, but I can just tell the sense from you. You love what you do, and I mean, that's very apparent in just, your energy and how you talk about it and stuff. So, when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. So those extra hours and time and stuff like that, it's rewarding. And
I get to go to work every day.
Yeah.
Since I've started in this space, I have never once said, I have to go to work. That is a mindset. That's a mindset. When my feet hit the floor, I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm not going to stand in a formation. I'm going to brush my beard. I'm retired. I get to go to work, and it is so much fun. So much fun.
I appreciate you, man. It was great to have you on the show and share your story. How can people get in touch with you if they want to reach out and get some advice?
Very simple. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Eric Brew on LinkedIn. You can also look at our website, www.ssv.org. Great website, great organization. Connect with anybody from still serving veterans, or SSV as we call it. But reach out to us, let us know. The best thing about what we do is we'll meet you where you're at. Everything we do is virtual. So just because I'm in the South down in Georgia doesn't mean I can't help anybody in Hawaii or Germany or Japan. Everything we do is virtual. So it's super user friendly. I'm a big fan of old music, so I say things like I'm easy like Sunday morning. But connect with us. We understand that the transition process, and even for veterans, the employment process, it's tough and it's time consuming, especially for our transitioning service members who are still wearing a uniform and still have a responsibility. So we try very hard not to be intrusive. We try to take as much of the load off of them as we can. We do a lot of the legwork for them, but I'll tell you, between our organization and I didn't even get to tell you, the way we get to give everything free to these guys and gals is because of the Call of Duty Endowment, who is a huge supporter of veteran employment and veteran stuff. But the Call of Duty Endowment is a generous donator through their philanthropy and charitable givings. We charge our clients nothing.
Wow.
It doesn't matter how many resumes we write. It doesn't matter how many workshops you attend. It doesn't matter how many coaching sessions. It doesn't matter. Dan Goldenberg and the Call of Duty Endowment are so generous and so incredible that they have written us a check and said, just help a whole bunch of people. Go help our veteran community.
That's amazing. So, that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep. And my organization is about to hit 1,000 hires this year. We're going to do it. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh man, that's exciting. Great growth, helping a lot of vets. Well, Eric, thanks so much, man. Hoorah to you. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for being on the Armed and Ready podcast. And we'll make sure to get our guests to like this, share it, and post it all over the place.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate your time.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for checking out this week's episode. Please subscribe, click the link below, share with your friends. And hey, if you know a military person or a veteran with a great story to share, we would love to highlight them on the podcast and get their story out to everybody. Thanks so much.